Welcome everybody to Movers and Shakers today, and we are continuing our discussion on the hottest topic in marketing, I believe, retail media networks and CTV and their relationship. We introduced V12's new strategic partner, Strategus, last week, and we asked our guests today, Charlie Thomas and Michelle Taves, to come back again to dive deeper into this topic. We'll first review some new news just out this week in the world of retail media networks, and then jump into our questions. So as Larissa said, please send your question in via the comments as we go. Michelle is the general manager of V12. Welcome, Michelle. And Charlie Thomas, the business development director at Strategus. So happy to have you guys again today. Last week was such a popular topic. We are so glad we're coming back this week to dive a little bit more into what this new relationship means. And thanks to V12, who is our gracious sponsor of Movers and Shakers. Now on with the new news this week. I don't know if you all saw it in the media, but Kroger's purchase of Albertsons, very interesting. And what I found most interesting about it was Patrick Coffey of the Wall Street Journal was very quick to jump on this angle that this proposed merger would reshape the U.S. supermarket industry, but also form a huge player in so-called retail media networks. And again, this is one of the fastest growing sectors of marketing and advertising. Patrick Coffey reports for CMO Today for the Wall Street Journal. And this merger would create the fourth market leader at more than 13% market share. Again, think behind Amazon, Walmart, and such. So interesting new news in the world of retail media networks this week. And I think you are going to know, I don't think I know, you're going to find very interesting as we deep dive into the Porch Media Network and the advantages it has, especially adding Strategus as a strategic partner in the world of CTV and all it can do for your business. I'm anxious to get into that. And as a lead-in, you know, when we dive deeper into this impending cookie-free world, you know, where do these retail media networks and the ability to do what we're going to call advanced CTV, where does this fit in? And I love how ComScore was talking about it last year in some of their communications. And really, to me, the advantage especially is, and especially as ComScore put it, you know, large companies tend to dominate TV advertising in that landscape. But now, because of retail media networks, and especially this relationship between Porch and Strategus, really there's such an advantage for medium and small businesses to leverage advanced CTV capabilities through the Porch Media Network. And we're going to get into that more today. Just really fascinating, I think, evolution here, especially for you small and medium-sized businesses with smaller budgets. You know, we know large businesses have been able to dominate linear TV advertising really for as far back as we go, but now this opens up a whole new world of opportunities for you small and medium-sized businesses. You know, again, if you look, the new Porch Group Media Network and this partnership with Strategus now offers Connect TV, and there are only one of 4 companies able to do this with this partnership. And Michelle and Charlie, let's talk a little bit more about the advantages of advanced CTV and how you guys are really opening up all these opportunities for our advertisers out there. Michelle, do you want to kick us off in this area?
Sure, I'd love to. I think that it's just really interesting, especially as we go and talk to a lot of the customers in our customer base, because the minute I talk about adding CTV into their current program, their eyes instantly get like really big because they're thinking, I'm going to ask them for like a huge budget, right? Because normally when you think of TV, I think you think easily of 6 figures, if not $1 million, right? And so the cool thing about what we can do with Strategus is that, you know, we can do a small, meaningful campaign that's not going to eat up their entire marketing budget. And that gives them the opportunity to test and learn into CTV compared to linear without going and getting additional budget. They could actually use budget that they already have in plan, which I think was one of the things that's just really exciting for what we can do. And then with CTV, the way that we measure it and do attribution and really are able to target to that individual, that's just game changer for us, right? So we've been able to even talk to some very small clients, up to the bigger brands. And it's just really flexible, and it could work across pretty much anyone that's interested in testing the channel.
Yeah, I know, Charlie, earlier this week we were catching up and you mentioned, some of your campaigns are as small as $15,000. And again, when you think about starting test and learn, with this media and putting that Porch data set behind, how you can target, wow, that really opens up some interesting test and learn opportunities for those small and medium-sized companies or even larger brands who may want to test in a sub-segment audience or what have you. Charlie, talk to us a little bit about the advantages in that area.
I will. You just said so many interesting things. Your introduction. I want to do a little bit of a catch up and then get to the point. And Michelle just one of the key ones, which is that this is a very it seems daunting, but it's actually a really, really easy world to enter budget wise and so forth. But the Albertsons Kroger, if I go, we don't have to go back to that slide. I'll just refer to it. That is going to massively reshape advertising as well. And because what's going to happen is this whole convergence of CTV and retail media networks is about raising standards, and it's about raising the standards of audience creation through first-party data, through messaging, which is perhaps that's a whole topic we could do at another time, and measurement. And so just think about what happens when the largest advertisers in the world, the retailers, but also I think it's the CPG companies, the Procter and Gamble's, the Unilevers, the Kraft Heinz, when they all start operating at much higher standards, and there's so many existing ideas and ways of doing things that are suddenly going to seem old. The idea of demographic targeting only. The idea of buying day part television, or giving one message to everybody, or to the topic at hand that, I'm a small brand or a small company, I can't do TV advertising because I need hundreds of thousands of dollars for a TV spot, or it's too expensive. I mean, those are all going to suddenly seem like old ideas, and when things get old, they don't go away; they just become incomplete. So what will happen is over time, the linear mindset and approach will become increasingly inefficient and effective. It'll still be there, but I think it'll be replaced by something that's much more exciting and better. So to get
Charlie,
back to
if it's okay, I wanna pipe in here for a minute because you said something that was really interesting. And I just came back from one of the conferences in New York, and one of the big items that came up is that across linear, you have a really difficult time actually, we shouldn't really use the word target, right, but actually reaching the correct consumer with the correct message, because most linear basically uses gender and age. And that's almost as strategic as linear could get. Now, there's addressable household. There's other things we could do for sure. But when it comes to demographics, right, they're almost stuck in that box. And through CTV, there's just so many other types of information we could use, which we've talked about, whether someone's a mover, a homeowner, a home buyer, whether they're an empty nester, whether they're a long distance mover, a short distance mover, whether they're in market for furniture, right? Whatever it is, we can create just so much of a robust audience that flows into the system that I think that's really a game changer, especially as I've listened to a lot of the really large brands and what they're doing today. It's just so elementary, and there's just so much more we can do,
Michelle,
to get that right audience.
You just described it, and then because you can always add on, right? Like you just described need states for people, their lifestyle. Then you can add on their passions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
People who are really passionate about a certain topic, or I had a conversation with a CMO not too long ago who was so frustrated by he kept getting demographic targeting, and the product that they have, he said, we appeal to skateboarders and surfers, and why isn't any of that in our targeting now?
Yeah.
And that I think I want to make sure I answer comment on Lucy's points and questions, and answer the question related to this slide, that this is still very early. We're past the beginning, but it's still early. But we're at a point now where this can all really scale, which means it's going to happen really fast. And we'll get to that in a couple slides. But what most people are doing, and this is particularly true at the big agencies, where they're using CTV as a reach extender. So that they're making big upfront television buys, and then they're getting extra inventory on CTV, and they're adding to it and checking that box and moving on. So what they're not doing is programmatic, and that's what we're doing. That's what Strategus brings, is we're a programmatic CTV managed service. And so for us, with advanced connected TV, when we use that phrase, it's using CTV to activate and measure the whole purchase funnel. It's not just, it's making the attribution pieces much more powerful, and we're optimizing. We're optimizing every campaign, sometimes daily. It depends on the client. Those three standards of audience creation, messaging, and measurement are all operating at a higher level. And that's what advanced connected TV means. And it's not hard to go out and just get the inventory. What's hard and sophisticated is what we're offering together.
Yeah, Michelle, what I like as a former marketer about this relationship as well is, you're often looking at signals. And I love, movers and homeowners, as they're moving, make decisions early. A lot of people talk about the post-move. Most decisions are made pre-move, and your data really identifies movers 35% earlier. I love that. And so when you think of the power of leveraging CTV in your upper or middle funnel, and you're able to get those signals 35% earlier to start talking to your customers, whether they're in the market to buy furniture or home services or new internet services or a car or change doctors or understand what restaurants are in their area. I mean, the use cases are endless. I just love, again, and in order for this to work well, you advertisers out there are dependent on the quality of data that's being used from your third-party source. And the quality of your data, Michelle, coupled with the power of Strategus, is just, I think, stellar. And I wish this had been around, when I was a marketer. It would have made my life a lot easier. So if you guys go on to the next slide. As ComScore did report, and we discussed earlier, large brands have dominated linear TV, and now small and medium-sized companies have options, and they can be extremely efficient. We just talked about that, but look at the growth that's expected. We talked about this last time, in connected TV ad spending and in retail media network spending. And again, I love the affordability that you all are bringing to, large brands and small and medium alike. Talk us through, again, we touched on this ever so briefly last time, but we wanted to do a deeper dive today, Michelle, on your porch mover and homeowner spine and how you really see the advantages of this advanced media network working for your current customers or prospective customers out there.
Sure, happy to. Well, I think that you nailed it down when you said we can identify, right, a mover much earlier in the funnel, just because of some of our first-party data, right? And there, if you watch the news, there's a whole bunch of retail media networks that are coming to the market. Marriott, Kroger's are just a few, much less all of the retail media networks through Amazon, Walmart. I just heard a great presentation on, I think it was Dollar General. I didn't even know they had a retail media network, right? But I think that what everybody is really kind of learning is that if you have the availability of first party data, right, that is not out there in the ecosystem, so it's not publicly available data, the ability to use that in combination with marketing execution just creates a really great experience for that brand and for that customer, right? Because it gives them access to something that they just can't find anywhere else. And I heard a great statement this last week. It was, if you're doing advertising well, you're doing a service to the customer, right? So you're not, you're providing them something that they're actually looking for with accurate data that can actually take them through the entire journey. And as being a Porch company, like, our mission is to help consumers as they're going through that move journey, right? We have a mission. We have many companies that do that. And as part of the marketing group, our mission is to be able to utilize all of those services and to be able to reach out to brands and really help that customer in another way with finding services earlier. So for us, the Retail Media Network is just a great way of providing access to our first party data, right? Because it's something that we would not sell and we would not release out into the ecosystem. But we would love to be able to use the information that we have to really create a great advertising story for those brands and those customers that want access to it. And to remember that we're not just about the mover, we're about the mover and the homeowner, right? So we can do all kinds of really cool things and insights with our home inspection data, right? And with some of our attributes. So it's beyond demographics when you have access to first party data. And I think that's the key for everybody that's starting to bring up these media networks.
Yeah, I love it. If you take us to the visual of the spine next in the slides, I think it's a great illustration of how things are working. And with your media services, in addition to, direct mail capabilities, digital, first party email, and then now adding CTV, really just an incredible media network. And then also, I know this is one of the, I'd say, deep dive areas we wanted to get into is reporting and attribution and how important that is. We know, especially to you, small and medium-sized businesses, again, accountable for, I used to say when I ran a small business, I was accountable for pennies. When I worked for a Fortune 40 company, we worked more in the tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands. But again, to have that accountability and understand what your return is and your cost of ad spend and your CAC cost, and again, how this network can really contribute to understanding your return is incredibly important. So let's talk a little bit about, and I know I'm skipping ahead, if you can go ahead, I think 2, that would be great, guys, on the slides. Yeah, go one more. We're going to come back to this. Yeah, I wanted to dig in a little bit more to campaign performance and how important this is. And I know, Michelle, you guys have worked hard to really create your dashboards and your accessibility. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yep. As a media company, I think that we struggle with something that everybody struggles with, right? Is how do you prove that your campaign is actually working? And Lucy, to your point, when you're working with a really big brand, right, they care about just getting a bunch of eyeballs and sometimes just trying to get their brand out, right? They're not always 100% matching to who did they bring into the door. But when you're working with small and medium-sized companies, every dollar counts for them, right? And if they're spending on a marketing campaign, they want to know that the result is driving new customers into the door, or it's winning back customers that might have left them for some reason or another. So what we did was we created something that we refer to as the sales dashboard, and it actually takes every campaign channel that we have, because we own the audience, and we can measure it back to actual customers that resulted from that campaign. We have an entire data science methodology that sits behind it. It's a web UI platform that anybody can log on to, and they can see versus their different channels how it works. but we actually are able to say, hey, we did a campaign to Michelle Taves, and we know that Michelle Taves walked into the store 2 weeks after the campaign was launched. Hence, she was influenced by one of the different channels. And depending on which channel you use, right, sometimes you can even take her to the exact channel that was used, especially if it was email and you're getting click rates, or, you know, through paid social. CTV, it's a little bit harder to tie to the channel, but you know that if she was in your CTV audience and not in some of your other audiences, right, you can really understand what channels worked, what didn't. And we have an entire like control group as part of our methodology to really be able to prove that the campaign is working. Because the bottom line is, if the campaign doesn't work and doesn't provide incremental dollars or customers to a brand, it just almost doesn't matter, right? So we want it to matter. I mean, that's our big mission, right? Is we want what we do to really make an impact for the brands that we work with, and we want to provide value to them. Because if we're not doing that, what we're doing is just moving a lot of pieces around.
Yeah, that makes sense. And if you go back to what the campaigns look like, again, now with Porch and Strategus, you can add CTV to your programmatic campaigns through the Porch Media Network. And again, really plan your cross-device and multi-channel options here. And I think, you know, through Porch, you know, there's just about every channel offered that you could possibly need or want to do a combination of test and learn. So I love it. And with CTV added most recently, I think it really completes, I'll say, the wheel, so to speak. I know we have some questions out there. Larissa, do you want to throw us our first question?
I do. If you did not enter your question, now is the time to do so. There's a question panel. Just go ahead and get that entered, and we will get to you. So the first question is, what do you mean by advanced CTV?
Yeah. Could you go back to the slide we just looked at?
Yeah, sure. Previous, was it the one right before this?
Yep, the one before that.
The campaign slide.
There you go.
There you go.
This is the illustration that answers the question. And I touched on this earlier. Most, or not, I shouldn't say most, but often when people enter CTV, all they do is the CTV ad, and to what Michelle said earlier, that's when people say, well, I can't really measure it. But what we do, and what we're going to do, is add these other components to it. So we can deterministically follow the same person or the same household with all these other digital ads that are on here. And through them, those are clickable and measurable. And so it's a new reach and frequency, new way to look at reach and frequency. And through that, we can measure activity through the whole purchase funnel, except for the piece that Michelle adds that she just mentioned. You know, we can get down to, we're very good at lead generation. You know, we can hear from our customers did the leads convert or not, but we can get somebody all the way down to what was the impact of the CTV ad on their search and their social aspects. Did their search, so this short answer to the question, this is what advanced CTV looks like. It looks like this, and then with the Porch data on the front end and the Porch final attribution on the back end, it's highly advanced. I mean, gets back to, you know, we're doing what Amazon's doing and Kroger currently, and Walmart. Those are the three that are doing this, and we would be the fourth.
So just for my own edification, Charlie, so I understand that other types of CTV providers may not have these cross-channel types of capabilities. Is that correct?
That's correct. These capabilities are available through through your partnerships. So I think it's important to note that these capabilities are available, but not many people are doing it. So what that means is it gets to the importance of being a first mover. You know, as as the industry matures, and it's going to mature fast based on those graphs that we saw earlier, this will start to become a standard. So I think that's really a critical question for many in the audience. If you're an agent, if I'm an agency or a client, the question I would be asking myself is, where do I want to be on the adoption curve? That and I think that's a question you need to answer in 2023. Do you want to be at the forefront? Do you want to be in the middle, or are you okay being a follower in the back? All of which are fine, as long as you're making that choice. And what we're offering is a chance to be at the forefront. And this is the kind of thing. I mean, this is like a new game, almost. Like the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Mm-hmm.
I would encourage you to get started earlier rather than later.
Well, and I think that we should, one of the topics to talk about is everybody knows that the election season is coming up, right? And the political season is coming up next year. And if you stick with linear, right, there's a lot of competition there. There's going to be less space available, and it's going to get to be more expensive. I mean, that's just what happens, right, when you start preparing for election years, because they start buying up a lot of extra space that they weren't buying up before. So to Charlie's point, I think that this year is almost the perfect time to at least test. If you're not testing CTV, you're almost doing yourself a disservice, right? If you're only relying on linear, especially with the amount of people that are cord cutters now. I think that it's growing every year, and if you're not a cord cutter, you have both. Right. And so like my household has both. We have cable and we have all the streaming services, and we probably have every streaming service you could possibly have. And we watch both of them. Right. But you want to be able to catch those people no matter where they're at and get as much impressions as you possibly can. So it's not necessarily a one or the other, which I think is probably what people have to kind of figure out. And then figure out what that testing looks like and what that strategy looks like, so that you could decide how much of your marketing budget that's already in budget today, right? How much do you want in CTV versus linear or OTT or whatever else you're doing? I think
to that point, Michelle, go on to the next question.
That's a lot of good information.
Yeah, Michelle, I was also going to add to that too. What this does is just gives you an incredible amount of flexibility. I think one of the biggest frustrations I had, as a marketer and a media buyer, was I had to commit, huge dollar amounts to upfronts at the beginning of the year. And as my year went along and I saw how results were going, I may decide I didn't need, the linear TV. And so CTV is much more flexible, especially in an election year, and also obviously more highly addressable. And so I know that was one thing that always drove me nuts as a marketer, because your year changes and your needs change. And in some cases, you can see new audiences pop up and whatnot, and your upfronts and everything you've committed, may not address those needs. And so I just love the affordability and flexibility that this offers.
Now,
Yeah,
Lucy,
Larissa, go ahead, Charlie.
Just real quickly, and we touched on this in our first webinar, that you find strategic certainty by looking at trends that are guaranteed to happen. Mm-hmm. And two of them are that the one group is technology, so we know technologically everything's moving from linear to streaming, and the other is demographics, because you know that people are going to age, and 50% of millennials still have not bought a house. But the new millennial homeowners this year went up 37%. Mm-hmm. So, and millennials are cord cutters. Mm-hmm. So, you kind of put all that together, and it speaks to the sense of urgency to, get in the game and figure out how to do the kind of marketing that, that's shown on the slide here.
Yep. And those millennials are the largest segment of the population now as well.
Largest generation in history.
Yep. Yeah. Larissa, next question.
I think we covered this, but just to kind of make sure we crossed our T's and dotted our I's. This question is, we've been doing traditional TV advertising. How would fitting in CTV work for us?
So I'll start, and then Charlie, if you want to follow up. I guess what I would say is we believe in test and learn, right? Like, and we're actually doing that with a few of our customers today. So we would never want to have you turn off a channel that's working for you, right? So test and learn, right? Pick either a state, pick a market, pick something that makes that testing process work really well for you and in your budget. All of our testing processes, we really recommend a test for at least 3 to 6 months if you could, right? So that you can really get proper readout and results over whether or not that test worked for you. And then after you get your test results, you'll completely understand like what channel works, how you can compare it to what you're doing today, if it's providing you lift, if it's working better or not. And then you have true data to make a really good decision, right? I'm all about the data, because everybody can tell you that their services are great, right? Everyone's going to tell you that. But until you actually activate and learn and test, you really don't know. So that's what we recommend to everyone. And that's one of the great things about the flexible pricing, right? Because it's not like you're going to throw out this large amount in your marketing budget to be able to do a test and learn exercise with us. And we try really hard to make that work for someone's budget so that we can continue to do ongoing business with them, because that's our goal.
Well, I think Michelle nailed it. You have to do both. I mean, transformation is always both. And one of the strategic mistakes people can make is thinking it's binary, it's one or the other. Mm-hmm. And but back to the point I just made, we know with certainty where the game's going. So I there's kind of two thoughts would be strategic migration and also strategic patience. So Michelle is right that I think it's really important to start with CTV, and you don't have to start with a large budget, but you could pick one market or two markets. In fact, Michelle and I have talked with potential customers about this, and then allow three. The other is have the patience to let the story unfold, let the data tell the story, and you really need 3 to 6 months to do that. And just give yourself, the first time you do anything is usually the least efficient time you do it, mm-hmm. Unless you're really lucky. So just realize that and say, okay, the first time we do this will be the least efficient. But this is where the measurability comes in. That anything you measure, you can improve. So if we have clearly defined KPIs, as I mentioned, we optimize throughout a campaign. Sometimes daily. And we'll get better. And I think it's just that patience to, commit to the path, start with a sensible approach, that sensible meaning that it's not too much, but also not too little, and then have the patience to stick with it and work on getting better.
Yeah, I agree. Setup so 2023 is really your learning year in this area, and then feed the data into your media mix models if you're using those as well to see what contribution this has, and then you can adjust and level set your budgets going into 2024. I think that could be a good option for some to in the path to test this. Larissa, what's our next question? Great answers, guys.
Yeah, definitely. And I thought this question was really interesting because we've had a couple of internal conversations about this. So this question is, I thought that connected TV would be an integral part of retail media networks, but you said you are one of only a few that offer this. Can you talk a little bit more about why this is and why more retail media networks do not offer this?
Yeah, so most media networks are all about display, to be honest. Display, ad placement, that's really where the majority of the media networks go today. So you can tell we are creating something completely different, right? Especially since we are also focusing on managed services within our media network. A lot of media networks are also self-service. So we have a different view on that also. We believe that by having some consultative approaches to it, we can add additional value, right? Whether it's audience recommendations, whether it's channel recommendations, whatever that might be. So that's why we're really going in the angle, that we're going. And we just think that the story is not all about display. There's just so much more you can do than just concentrating on that.
Yeah, this actually, kind of, Michelle, it's funny. It gets back to how you and I met. Michelle's
Yeah.
right. Retail media networks are starting out with just largely driven by display, also search and paid social. And to do what's on this slide here takes a lot of time and money. And people are thinking, yeah, I'm going to add CTV capabilities, but it will take me 2 years to do it. And I got to hire a lot of people, and I got to get my tech team working on it.
Mhm.
And we covered this in the first webinar. It's taken us 8 years to build out the ecosystem that can do what's on this page and then measure it, which is the in many ways the hardest part.
Mhm.
So when Michelle and I met at a conference, we just coincidentally sat next to each other, and Michelle said, "Hey, we're putting together a retail media network. That's why I'm here." And I said, "Well, you could have, if we partnered together, you could have CTV capabilities like right away." And she's like, "What?" And I said,
Yeah.
"Yeah, all you have to do is add us as a managed service partner, and you can kind of skip all that time and money in order to do it." So I think you'll see a lot of companies either slugging it out the long road, or taking a shortcut by partnering with companies like us and getting CTV right away.
Yeah, and Michelle, I love that you guys also can add things like direct mail and email, in addition to that really programmatic digital as well. Larissa, what's our next question? That was a good one.
Yeah. So next question is somebody, if you could get maybe a little bit more into the nuts and bolts. So when can we start running CTV campaigns, and what is the process when we work with you?
Yep, we're ready. So we have worked out the kinks, to say the least. We are ready to go, and we are live. So the process is really simple. You just give us a call, talk to us, and we will have someone that will actually listen and understand what you're trying to do, and make sure that whatever channel we're recommending is going to be the best channel for you. So it's really simple. That's how you start, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, if I could add to that, and we'll get better. That we can do in Q4 what's on this slide right here, and provide the level of attribution we've been talking about. But without getting too far into the weeds, there's so much more that we can do. And as our teams, we were just talking about it this morning, brainstorming on all the different ways that different things we could do with the data in particular to create these tremendous audiences. And keep in mind, every audience that we do will be custom created, a combination of our data sources and Porch's data sources, as will every attribution plan. So we don't do cookie cutter work. Everything is highly customized. And, between those two bookends of audience creation and attribution, you get a full managed service in between, which is the optimization piece. But we're ready to go now. If anybody's got a Q4 campaign, we'd love to handle it.
Good to know.
And Larissa, can you put us on the last slide just in case anyone wants to leverage the QR code that goes straight into our contract form, and somebody from Michelle's team can get back to you. We'll make it really simple for you. What's the next question?
Next question is kind of back to basics. Maybe you could just kind of reiterate, what are some of the connected TV platforms out there? For example, is YouTube one, Netflix?
Oh man, there's tens if not hundreds.
There are a lot. Usually, if you can name it, it's out there, right? I mean, I think that the winners are if you look at Hulu right now, right, they're doing a lot of advertising. If you look at Prime right now, they're doing a lot of advertising. If you look at the industry news, Disney is coming up shortly in 2023. Netflix is coming up shortly in 2023. But there's billions of apps, YouTube video for sure. There's quite a big list out there for connected TV.
Yeah, I'll just throw some names out there. Basically any retailer. I mean, Michelle mentioned Dollar General, but Lowe's, Albertsons, of course, Best Buy, Ulta Beauty, Instacart is a really big one to watch. They're gonna be a heavyweight. They already are heavyweight. And, when they get CTV capabilities, there'll be even more of one. I mentioned this on our first webinar. The really, really interesting thing to watch is Thursday night football. Because Thursday night football is, maybe the most popular content available with the NFL, and it's sitting on top of a retail media network, which is Amazon. So the future of everything we're talking about is likely going to be coming out of Thursday night football. The new models of what is possible. But I read yesterday, Uber has a retail media network, and they say they're going to do $1 billion in revenue next year. Like, I'm curious to see how that happens. But there's a lot of them.
Yeah. Are you guys also able to provide campaigns through the OTT networks, like Roku and those types of networks as well?
Yes.
Yeah. Great. I think we have time for one more question.
Yes, and I know we kind of briefly talked about this, but a couple of questions. If you could just go into a little bit more depth about the type of audience segments that you have, mover types of segments, household. I know there was something about automotive. If you could just give maybe like a high level overview of different ways to target.
Sure, I can do that. I mean, we're an audience company, right? So we have over 350 million, consumers and households that we know about today. Obviously, as being part of a Porch company, some of our special sauce is definitely within the mover sphere. And within the mover sphere, we can break it down into several different types of segments depending on where they are in their move journey. From when they are, 12 weeks out to when they are 6 weeks out to when they are, a couple of days out from actually moving. And then we can identify them, and we know once they've made that move journey, they've completed it to a post mover, which then offers all types of other marketing opportunities now that they're in a brand new home. We also have access to what we refer to as our VIN auto database, where we actually have, make, model, year of auto in the car, in the garage. And a lot of people forget how important that is. But auto is really important for modeling capabilities, to understand economics around a household. I mean, there's so many other reasons why people would use and be interested in car ownership data, other than just being able to market for if they need a new car or if they need aftermarket services. And we also have what we refer to as our in-market audiences, which is all about understanding what people are out there either in their car driving to, or what they are looking for online and what they're interested in doing in the near future. So really all of our audiences combine all of that together to be able to create a true persona on a consumer, and understand what that consumer is doing at all different times, and being able to create a marketing message at a time that is relevant to what they're out there doing. Right, that's basically our mission. That's what we want to do, and we can do that through any channel pretty much available today in the market.
And I have to say, I may be a little biased for all of you on the webinar, but this is one of the most passionate teams. I've had many conversations, and just the enthusiasm to make this successful for our clients. And I'm hearing use cases of how well things are working and different ideas. I would encourage you just to reach out, ask questions if you just even want to know more about how it works. I know any one of our folks on the panel today would be happy to answer your questions, and you'll receive an email from me tomorrow with the recording. Feel free to ask me the questions. We're happy to be your resource. And on that note,
yeah, I think on that note, that concludes today's episode here, our webcast today of Movers and Shakers. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Michelle, for going deeper into this topic and talking about and explaining and educating our audience today on these fantastic capabilities. And again, if anybody needs any more information or wants a one-on-one meeting on how to get going, please scan the QR code. That's going to take you directly to a form, and somebody on Michelle's team can get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you to V12 again for sponsoring Movers and Shakers with us today. We look forward to seeing you next time on Movers and Shakers, and watch your email for our future topics, and we'll be excited to have you back. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, everybody. Thank you.